LeBron is ridiculous. I mean, absolutely, positively ridiculous. I doesn't it make any of you feel like and I get it. You can't compare yourself uh you can't compare yourself to what he's done because he's not a human being at this point, but oh my goodness. Holy smokes. 46 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 steals, a block, 9 3-pointers, a career high for LeBron. Shot 55% for the ball game on top of all that other stuff. 5 for 5 at the free throw line. He's a freight train, and he had absolutely zero help in yesterday's ball game. He really tried to do it himself. It wasn't enough. Russell Westbrook was particularly terrible in yesterday's ball game. And remember, LeBron got off to kind of a slow start this year. Now he's number 17 per game overall. Over the last month, he's number 7, scoring almost 35 points per game while shooting over 80%, by the way, at the free throw line during that stretch. And that's with defensive stats for LeBron down a tiny bit. But the big news of the day, we got to come on air beyond LeBron, who now, after scoring 46, is crazy, against the Clippers last night, has scored 40 points against every single NBA team. He is less than 200 points away from breaking the all-time scoring record. So that's dropping probably in early February, which is crazy. And he's just going to blow past it. LeBron's unreal. This is, and also, by the way, I feel really good about a couple of things. Because remember, LeBron was one of the other guys that I was like, look, I think this is going to be the year that we end up with more LeBrons on our fantasy teams. Because to me, it felt like there was no way the Lakers were going to waste another season, even though they're at risk of doing so. And so I didn't think there were going to be a lot of rest days, a lot of shutdown stuff, injury. He was going to be trying to play through it, and he largely has. He missed some time early in the season. Lately, it's been much better. That number 17 rank for LeBron, by the way, is by totals on the year. He's played in 38 of their ball games. He's both 17 per game and totals. 38 is basically what the average NBA player's been in so far this year. So again, after that kind of slow start, I mean, you could even go 2 months. Last 2 months of LeBron, he's number 8 on a per game basis. A lot of stuff that we thought was going to happen at the very beginning of the year has now happened. It just took a little bit longer to get there. LeBron got going. Dame got going. Kyrie got going. Jimmy Butler banged up all the time, but he's up there. Now the big question mark coming into today, Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis is expected to make his return for the Lakers tonight. Brandon Ingram is expected to make his return for the Pelicans tonight. We did get a report yesterday in the evening that AD is expected to be limited about 20 to 24 minutes in his return, which, by the way, that's more than I would have expected for a guy coming back off what I would classify as a pretty large injury. So to that end, I think it'll depend a little bit on how he looks and how the game is going. 24 minutes for Anthony Davis is more than enough for him to post decent fantasy value. Obviously, he's not going to be the number 1 player per game when he was playing, low to mid 30s in minutes. 33 and a half, I think, is the total for him on the season. Earlier this year, that's a different monster. 22, 23, 24, whatever it turns out to be today. But he's still a top 50 guy in that type of number. So if you have Anthony Davis and he does actually suit up tonight, which again, it sounds like he's going to try, I think I would start him in Roto Games Cap. And I know I would start him on the head-to-head side because you want to get him in there. I know the Lakers are off Thursday and Friday before they start their grueling road trip. This is a really tough stretch. So let's hope AD can stay healthy for it. Give the Lakers a shot in any of those ball games. But the Brandon Ingram one, I think, is actually a little bit different. Ingram, we don't have a set number of minutes for him yet, but he's number 54 per game on the season. in his 32 minutes per ball game. So it's a pretty wide gap. And I hope I'm answering the question that you guys have before you even have a chance to ask it, which is why is AD different than Brandon Ingram if both guys are coming back from a big injury and both guys are on a minutes limit? Well, it all has to do with if we think Ingram gets around 20 to 24 minutes per ball game as well, you shave off whatever amount you decide is reasonable from his total number on the year. He was at 21 points, 5 boards, a little under 5 assists in 32 minutes per ball game. If he's only playing 2/3 of that, which is kind of what we're doing on the AD side, 2/3 of that is, 14 points, 3 and some odd rebounds, about 3 assists, just slightly over that, 0.6 steals, 0.4 blocks. That's not enough. That's top 100 or ever so slightly out of it. And then you have to factor in the rust deal for both of these guys. There's going to be rust. Anthony Davis, a lot of his value was tied in his percentages, but also a lot of it was tied in the fact that he's going to be rebounding. He's a steals and blocks maniac. He has a certain buffer against rust and lower minutes that Ingram simply doesn't have. Because pretty much all of Brandon Ingram's value is tied up in his ability to go do stuff. And frankly, offensive stuff. The defensive stuff is fine. 1.6 combined defensive stats is not terrible for Ingram, but it's not the 3 and whatever that we're getting from Anthony Davis. Let's just take this linearly, even though we've talked about this recently. I think might have even been yesterday, although who knows with my brain, that if a guy's playing fewer minutes, it's not always that same thing. They might go harder in those fewer minutes. I don't know that that's necessarily the case for these guys who might want to kind of ease their way back into this thing. So for Ingram, if you're thinking, all right, 22, 23 minutes gets him to around top 100 range, it might be a better idea to just leave him on the bench on your roto side a little bit longer. If it's an head-to-head, you obviously just drop him in there and see what happens. But Anthony Davis, even if you take away a third of his production, he's still a very good fantasy player, just, not a first or second rounder at that point. So far this week, and we did get some injury news yesterday, this has been a week where guys have largely been coming back from injury. That's kind of nice because last week it was a week where everybody went down. Now, the one little injury news, I mean, it's medium, it's not nothing, is Bobby Portis. Bobby Portis suffered a sprained MCL. We didn't even really know that's what was going on. We got that report about an hour ago. I don't think there's a key pickup for Milwaukee. If Middleton wasn't back, I might have said, like a Pat Connaughton would step into a little bit more rebounding responsibility. Grayson Allen, Connaughton, Joe Ingles would have all been doing a little bit more stuff off the bench. But now that the Bucks can kind of rotate their guys and Giannis is back, Drew's been back for a while, Middleton will probably ramp up to 20 minutes in his second ball game. I just don't think there's enough to grab any of those other guys on the Bucks. And as Middleton continues to increase his playing time and his usage and his involvement in what the Bucks are doing, then it becomes, in my opinion, very clear that there isn't another guy to pick up on the Milwaukee Bucks. Welcome to the show, everybody. I didn't even get to do a hello from your pal Uncle Leo. I am Dan Besbris, at Dan Besbris on Twitter. Hello to everybody watching on YouTube. Hello to everybody listening on traditional podcast channels. I am at Dan Besbris on Twitter. I always have that written on the screen over on the live YouTube side, at DANBESBRIS. To the YouTube viewers, please like and subscribe the video. To those listening on the traditional channels, I hope you'll join us for our next YouTube show. I'm trying to do this every day of the week. I can't promise it'll be out there every day of the week. It'll be, if I'm not able to do the live YouTube show on any given day, it'll just be sort of dropped in there like we used to do, where it's just a static image with the podcast. So you'd still be able to listen to it. But there is a certain advantage, as I've said before. If you're watching live, I do a lightning round question and answer session at the end of the show with folks in the YouTube chat. And I've been considering doing a little promo where I answer the first 5 questions in the YouTube chat at the beginning of the pod. Try to get you guys a little wired, get you in there and put those questions in early. So check that out. That link is youtube.com/sportsethos, which if you're having trouble spelling it, SPORTSETHOS, youtube.com/sportsethos is our YouTube page. Let's go ahead and dive into the rest of the box scores from yesterday. We already talked, I think, frankly, the biggest news of the day, which is guys coming back. Chicago melted down late in Indiana. They blew what at one point was a 21-point lead in the ball game. And honestly, this is just another example of why I can't fully bring myself to embrace the Alex Caruso or Patrick Williams situation while the Bulls are fully healthy. They had actually been playing better prior to this ball game, so I don't think they're going to be sellers at the trade deadline. On the Indiana side, you saw a little bit more Chris Duarte. That was with no Andrew Nembhard. And I mean, that's all you really need to know about that. TJ McConnell was incredible again. It sounds like Tyrese Halliburton might be trying to get back as soon as this weekend, which of course would blow up the TJ McConnell and any Andrew Nembhard stuff. And the recent increased usage of Benedict Mathurin would also kind of nosedive a little bit. And a lot of ands here with Indiana. And if Halliburton really is back by this weekend and the Pacers are still kind of able to hang in there here without him, I think it makes them less likely to be sellers at the trade deadline. And which, I mean, if you're the Lakers, to me, you missed a golden opportunity. You just waited and you waited and you waited. But who knows? Anything can happen. Think about putting Hield and Turner around what LeBron is doing right now. I don't know, man. Lakers, do something. But anyway, if Halliburton is back, keep an eye on that. And if indeed they are playing to get into that play-in tournament, the Isaiah Jackson stash becomes way less interesting because then it seems more and more likely that Miles Turner hangs around with Indiana. Boston and Miami was kind of a zombie basketball game. Boston was without Marcus Smart, without Malcolm Brogdon. Al Horford was getting a rest day. So, not surprisingly, Derek White had to do a lot of guard stuff for this team. Peyton Pritchard also logged 43 minutes. Jaylen Brown had this ball game off as well, so that opened up wing minutes. They went smaller. Grant Williams played 36 of them. It just won't be the same in their next ball game. I would guess that Brogdon is probably back. But if he's not, if Brogdon and Smart are each out for their next one, then, Derek White continues to be extremely interesting. I have trouble doing the Grant Williams dance. You need, first of all, you need him to take more than 6 shots. He's all about efficiency, which is typically pretty good. I mean, he made 3 threes and he shot 50% for the ball game, but it's just you're praying for that like low end efficiency line, and that's just not that much fun. But again, if all of those guys out, you can go the Pritchard route. He'll be better. I mean, he shot under 30% in this ball game. If that's even a little bit better, he's at 15, 7, and 4. So let's just keep an eye on the Boston injury report before their next ball game. But I wouldn't do a whole lot early, other than saying, okay, Derek White, you've got the easiest path of all of these guys. On the Miami side, Jimmy Butler hurt himself during warmups, which, I mean, come on, Jimmy. And then the whole team was just god-awful except Bam Adebayo, and they won somehow, shooting 36% for the ball game. It helped that they committed only 7 turnovers to the Celtics 17. It helped that they out-rebounded the Celtics 51-44. So Miami had 94 field goal attempts and Boston only had 74. And that's the answer of how they actually won the ball game. And then when Jimmy Butler went out, it was a question of which guy was going to pick up the pieces. And amazingly, it was not Tyler Hero. It was not Kyle Lowry. It was not Victor Oladipo. It was Max Strus and Haywood Highsmith. Go figure. I would assume that if Butler misses another ball game, this is probably not the thing you expect to happen again. I'd lean back towards Kyle Lowry, who did have 8 assists, running more point guard with Jimmy out. He just couldn't shoot. He runs hot and cold. Oladipo, very cold for this ball game. He'll run a little bit hot and cold as well. Those are the guys you're playing, and you're not veering off of them from warm stretches or cold stretches. you just kind of have to assume that everything will balance out in time. The unfortunate injury news of the day, beyond Bobby Portis, was that Donovan Mitchell seemed to re-aggravate his groin late against the Knicks. He was upset with himself for being extremely inefficient, although he did have a pretty damn good ball game outside of the field goal percent. So I'm going to assume that Donovan Mitchell is going to miss probably another week, maybe longer. This might be more like the Bradley Beal thing where they have to just be a little bit more careful, maybe push it more towards 2 weeks. What do you do with Karis LeVert? Points leagues and leagues where you're punting percentages and turnovers. Yeah, I mean, he could make some sense. We saw he was kind of decent the last few games while Donovan Mitchell was out. He goes back to doing very little when that team's fully healthy. I don't start LeVert in a Roto Games Cap format. I guess you could pick him up in head-to-head. It's not the worst idea in the world. You just kind of hope you get one of those lightning in a bottle type of ball games. And then over on the Knicks side, they were forced to go a little bit bigger than they wanted to because the Cavs are a little bit bigger than most teams. Evan Mobley and a Jared Allen front court is gigantic. You just can't go small against them or you're going to get annihilated. So Jericho Sims and Isaiah Hartenstein pretty much, actually to the 48-minute second, split the center minutes. Against most teams, that won't be the case. They were in a perfect timeshare here, 25 and 23 minutes, so almost split right down the middle. Hartenstein in 23 minutes is worth a look. I don't think that that's something that happens in the next ball game. I think as the Knicks play against almost anybody that doesn't have the world's biggest front line, they'll go smaller, and you'll see Emmanuel quickly pick up 3, probably-ish 4 extra minutes where they run Obi Toppin at the 4 and Julius Randle at the 5, but they didn't play Randle at the 5 in this ball game. He and Obi Toppin split the power forward minutes right down the middle, and then quickly was kind of picking up all the backcourt stuff without anybody squeezing up the size board in a way that I think will happen in the future. So I'm actually holding on to Emmanuel quickly during this Mitchell Robinson absence. I need to kind of see him look better. Yeah, he was relatively efficient in this ball game. He's one of their better players, but I need to see him get a little bit more engaged on the, frankly, the chucking side. Sorry. I know that's bad for reality, but fantasy-wise, you kind of want it. And then I might drop him into a lineup. But I actually think on the head-to-head side quickly makes a lot of sense right now. Nikola Jokic came back from his hamstring tweak, and, he did Jokic stuff, but he was actually a -6, believe it or not, in this ball game. Kind of sleepwalking a little bit. The Nuggets, they do that sometimes. Sometimes offense comes so easily that they don't really pay close attention. No Michael Porter Jr., so that meant Bruce Brown is a stream. Pretty much anytime any starter is out for Denver, you can roll with Bruce Brown. Aaron Gordon was not particularly great in this ballgame. He had some foul stuff early and then blah, blah, blah. So they went to some other lineups and they squeaked it out. Over on the New Orleans side, whatever we were doing here, you can kind of throw out the window. Here's how I feel about the Pelicans now with Brandon Ingram back. So sort of pause your brain and just reset. Ingram back today is different than other days because, again, he's going to be on that minutes cap, and we don't know exactly how long it's going to take him to ramp up, but it's probably going to be a few ball games. Today, I am now afraid to play Herb Jones because Herb only played 24 minutes in this ball game, and that was with Ingram out. Today, I think I'm still willing to play Trey Murphy. I don't know that his shots change all that much. He probably just slides up to power forward, or Ingram slides up to power forward, and Jackson Hayes goes back to the bench. Herb Jones probably does still continue to start, but again, it's about playing good enough to get starters minutes, and that's not even the case while the team is banged up right now. So Murphy, I think, still maybe hangs on as long as Zion is out. Now, when he comes back, I think almost all of these guys are droppable other than kind of the superstar names, McCollum, Ingram, Zion. That might be it. You're also going to see Jonas Valanciunas trend down as the Pelicans get scorers back because then they'll need his offense less and they'll need Larry Nance Jr.'s defense more. Does that mean I'm adding Larry Nance right now? No, I think I want to see how things look as Ingram ramps up for the front court in particular. If you're on the Roto side, I'm perfectly comfortable benching everybody other than CJ McCollum. Not kidding. Every single player on the team, I'm perfectly comfortable benching besides CJ McCollum. That's what makes games cap kind of an interesting strategic wrinkle here. Do I spend a games cap on anyone in this ball game or next New Orleans ball game? And again, I think the answer is just CJ. I don't think I'm playing JV while we see how this thing gets ramped up. I don't think I'm playing Nance. I'm not playing Herb. I'm not playing Alvarado. Trey Murphy's probably like the closest one, and I'm probably going to squat on him too. Washington gets a win on the road. I mean, I said it, man. The Mavericks are not, without Christian Wood in particular, there's just not enough there. Dinwiddie did more, as expected. Tim Hardaway Jr. didn't, which was kind of surprising. Luka did as much as he possibly. I mean, the Luka and LeBron stuff, there's a lot of similarities right now between those two teams. I would argue that the Mavericks supporting cast is by and large better because at least they have Dinwiddie, who's a playmaker. They have Hardaway, who's a floor spacer. Lakers have Russ, who's been quite bad for long stretches. He had some few games in there where he kind of powered them, but boy, good Russ and bad Russ are so different. Anyway, this isn't about the Lakers. We'll get to them in a minute. Dwight Powell finally had a better fill-in game at center. I don't trust him to do that nightly, so no, I'm not adding him here unless we see some consistency in that regard. I think they're going to be reevaluating Wood pretty soon here, and then we just kind of have to hope that there's a port coming down the pike on that one. As far as Washington goes, I really like Daniel Gafford. I still do. He fouled out of this game in 19 minutes. Luka with 12 free throws. I think you get the idea there. The officials also called this game really tight. Washington had 41 foul shots. Dallas had 26. That game probably took 3 hours. Gafford had 8 of them. But 9.7 boards, a block. You give that guy, he's on his way to high 20s in minutes while Kristaps Porzingis is out at the very least. So I still really like Daniel Gafford a lot. I saw some good things out of Denny Avdia in this game, too. We knew he was going to have a bigger role. I still think a lot of his value is tied up in his ability to run offense, and he didn't really get to do that here. His value in this ballgame was in rebounds and steals, and fortunately, he got enough of them. So I think some of this was a little bit overinflated on the Avdia side. I'm not going to say I'm down on him. He's just not my favorite of the Wizards fill-in guys. I like Gafford over Avdia filling in on the front court side. And then I still like DeLon Wright. I don't know how he's doing it because his minutes aren't that high, but he had 10 points, 6 assists, 3 steals, and a couple of 3 balls in only 22 minutes again. I wish I could comfortably say those minutes are going to ramp up. I don't necessarily know that that's the case. But look, like, he's playing well enough to be started right now. And then if anything at all happens to Corey Kispert or Monte Morris or Bradley Beal, heaven forbid he gets hurt again, then you know DeLon Wright moves into additional minutes. So right now it's good floor with kind of infinite injury-related upside. And no, I'm not worried that Kendrick Nunn cuts into his playing time because Wright is simply better. Phoenix blew out Charlotte, so you can dump a lot of this box score, but not all of it. Good to see Chris Paul with another efficient ball game. He didn't get any steals here, but honestly, I don't care because he shot 6 for 9 from the floor. That's been the thing mostly holding CP3 back this year, is that his field goal percent has been super, super low, but it's up to 43 now, and his rank is up to 42. The missed games have been a pisser, but as far as per game value goes, he's right on his ADP. He was getting drafted around 40 this year. I was able to get him in the 4th round in non-keeper spots. And if he keeps this pace, I know Devin Booker comes back, but frankly, I kind of like the way they play off each other. It's all about percentages for Chris Paul. He's only at 81% at the foul line also on the year. I know we talk about like the great leveling, and it's supposed to happen 6 to 8 weeks into the season, but it's really more about it happening 6 to 8 weeks into an individual player's season, not the season at large. Chris Paul is like right around 8 weeks of basketball in his season, but they've been split up by various old man injuries. So he's still finding his legs for this year. And hopefully now he can get a few weeks in a row and kind of start to feel the rhythm. It looked like it was beginning to happen before the last injury, well, before the whole team got hurt. Meanwhile, his ability to play better. Now, obviously, going against Charlotte is super helpful for all of these guys. So you're not adding Dario Saric, you're not adding Bismack Biyombo, because DeAndre Ayton is likely coming back. I think he had the flu for yesterday's game. But look at Cam Johnson, man. I don't want to get too excited about this, but dude had 24 points in 18 minutes. As they bring him along, he really does have 75 range potential. You're talking about like a late sixth, probably, type of pick, early seventh. I mean, this is a really valuable guy, and he's so critical to what the Suns want to do because they need other dudes that can space the floor. And they had 22 threes in this game. But again, don't read too much into this one. Everybody beats up on the poor Charlotte Hornets defense. No LaMelo Ball again. Dennis Smith Jr. played 27 minutes in this one. Once again, really didn't have his shot going. The assists were also not there for Charlotte, partly because no one could knock down a shot. That's the thing. I think Dennis Smith Jr. remains a pretty reasonable stream, certainly on the head-to-head side while LaMelo's out, because he's going to pile up typically assists and steals, and he's been okay in the other stuff. Roto Games Cap, he hasn't been where we needed him to be, and it's a little bit surprising because there was no Gordon Hayward in this game. Bryce McGowan's got the start because they didn't want to go too small in the backcourt, and also they want to make sure that they lose. Good Lord, it's hard to watch Hornets games. But you know what? At least Rozier got some defensive stats, even if the shot wasn't great. He's finally come around. McDaniel's obviously way better when Gordon Hayward is out. Does Hayward play in the next one? Does Plumlee play in the next one? Mark Williams only got 6 minutes and Nick Richards got 17. The Hornets, man. This is like the end of The Aristocrats. The Aristocrats! I always think back, I don't know if you guys saw that movie. I always think back at Gilbert Gottfried's retelling of it. Now, you might be asking yourself, why all the blood? That's kind of the way I feel about the Hornets this year. The Aristocrats. Because this is what it is at the end of it all. They are in between. Just lean into it, guys. Lean into the tank. For goodness sake. Just let guys chuck. Stop forcing bunches of different centers into the lineup. I know you want to guarantee you lose, and mixing and match weird pieces is the best way to do it, but you're going to lose anyway. You don't have to do anything special to lose. Ugh, the Hornets. So, again, Mark Williams, this is why, to me, he still feels more like a next year guy, where if you get lucky and Plumlee gets moved, maybe you get like a Williams, Nick Richards timeshare after the All-Star break. It's so hard to know what the crap this team is doing night to night. Oh, difficult. Hit me with questions about the Hornets. If you have specific questions about the Hornets, this is a great time to use the YouTube live chat, and a great time for those of you listening on the recorded channels to think, man, I should go watch the YouTube live chat. Clippers made every shot on planet Earth. Here's a fun little stat. The Clippers had 9 players attempt a field goal in yesterday's ball game. 9 players. 11 players touched the floor. 9 of them took a shot. 9 out of 9 shot 50% or better. The team shot 61% in the ball game. And yeah, I mean, the superstars were good. Kawhi, he was 69% from the field in the ball game, 25, 9 and 3, 2 steals and 2 blocks again. And PG had 27, 9 and 4. But it was the other guys. That's what killed the Lakers. Reggie Jackson, who's been in the doghouse, came off the bench and had 19 points and 4 3-pointers. Norman Powell hit every shot on earth. Terrence Mann hit 4 3-pointers. Rob Covington hit 2 and had 4 blocks in 19 minutes. Nick Batum went 1 for 2. Zubats was 3 for 4. Some of this was the Lakers' defense, just sort of not being up to snuff, but not all of it. Not all of it. It wasn't like the Clippers were wide open on all of these shots. The Norman Powell stuff was like coming around a screen, pull up three-pointer from straight away. I think he had 3 of those in the ball game. Reggie Jackson had 2 3-pointers in this game that he just sort of slowly dribbled into. The defender was standing right there. He was like, screw it. Everything's going in. I'll throw it up. So that was one of those nights. And, it sucks because for LeBron, he looked frustrated. And I can understand why, because he didn't get any help. This is going to be a game where, seeing the way the Clippers were shooting, the Lakers needed to make all of their shots on offense to compete. And LeBron did that. And Thomas Bryant was okay. And everybody else was pretty bad. Wenyen Gabriel missed all 3 of his foul shots. Patrick Beverley went 1 for 8. Russell Westbrook in particular was atrocious in this game. And the Lakers actually had a little comeback, and it was still a bit of a long shot. I don't know if you guys watched it live or not. They were down 113-100. LeBron hit his, what at that point was, I believe, his 9 3-pointer of the game. It was either his 8th or 9th, to draw the Lakers to within 10, 113-103. It was about as close as they'd been since like midway through the first quarter, I think. And then they got a turnover, I believe. And out of a media timeout, Russell Westbrook was inbounding a pass, and he tried to sail it way up and over the top to Schroeder, and Paul George stole it. It led to a 3-point play for Kawhi Leonard. Next trip down, I believe Russ missed a shot. I can't remember exactly. Clippers scored again, and then Russ had it poked away from behind on the next. It was like 3 plays in a row where the Clippers went on a quick little 8-0 run to go back up by 18 instead of 10. And you could just feel everyone. That's when the Lakers pulled all their starters. That was with like 5 minutes left. They're like, we're done. We're done. Sometimes you get good Russ. Sometimes you get bad. Unfortunately, when you get bad Russ, it's rough. It's real rough. And against a team like the Clippers, he's going to struggle because a lot of Russ's game is beating slow opponents. The Clippers are all long wings. You just don't have that edge against them. One guy you could probably beat would be Zubats. But then they're pretty good at recovering. Sure enough, the Lakers lost the rebound battle by 15 again. I mean, like all of these things that need to get solved, and Anthony Davis certainly helps in some of that. Hachimura is actually going to help with a little bit of that as well. But as far as fantasy goes for this game, I didn't mean to get too far sidetracked on this Lakers-Clippers battle. If you're looking at Terrence Mann and Norman Powell and Reggie Jackson and Rob Covington, and you're like, ooh, just try to remember how insane the shooting was in this ball game. Because for me, the Clippers are at full strength here. Kawhi, Paul George, and usually Zubats are the only 3 guys I'm starting on the Roto side. All those other names you can look at on the head-to-head, schedule-wise, they make sense. If you get the Clippers in like a 3-game and 4-night type of stretch, we call those guys schedule streamers here on the pod. So just kind of get used to that nomenclature. That's as far as it goes. As the Lakers go, I don't know if you guys were playing anybody beyond LeBron James in Roto, but, we dabbled in Thomas Bryant a little bit recently, quite a lot when AD first went down, but then teams started to kind of beat him up on defense. I believe I said I was ever so slightly leaning towards a yes on Bryant last night, and he was fine. So he was basically right on the fence. His fantasy line was right on the fence, just the way we were feeling about him. You can't start him now. Even if he's still in the starting 5 for the Lakers, he becomes more of a floor spacing rebounder as part of their offense. I would consider it if I'm the Lakers. You need more rebounders out there. They are getting obliterated on the glass. Some of that is because of how they have to play on defense. And this is all relevant, by the way, to fantasy stuff. So I would say don't necessarily drop Thomas Bryant immediately, especially when you consider the fact that AD is only going to play 20 to 24 minutes. But they might also try to go a bit bigger. I don't know if Rui's going to start here in his first game for the Lakers, but there's a lot of pieces that kind of need to slot together. If a great streamer pops up, then go ahead, dump him. And I think there's probably like about a 90% chance the Lakers end up being just LeBron and AD for Roto leagues. Who can I play? Who's above the cut line? But there is that like 10% chance. And big man stats are, I think, more important than ever this year because rebounding has been kind of tougher in fantasy this season. Field goal percents overall are up this year, so you really need your big men to contribute hard in that category. And so that's where I would sit on the Lakers side. Let's take a quick look at this upcoming Wednesday card. It's a bigger one, so I'll try to move through it a little bit faster than usual. And again, a reminder to all of our recorded listeners to come hang out with us on YouTube next time because we're getting closer to the live chat. But here's what's coming up on this Wednesday evening. Indy at Orlando. I think we know what to expect with Indiana at this point. For Orlando, Jonathan Isaac experience. We don't know what the minutes cap is going to be, but I would assume it's like probably around 12 after he played 10 in the first one. If he gets beyond 12, I'll be pretty happy. And I'd say there's like maybe a 20% chance they let him go to 13 or 14 because I think a lot of it's about conditioning right now. Brooklyn, nothing really. They are who they are, and this is going to be a tougher one. They've got Philly, although if Joel Embiid is out, then certainly that changes things a bit. I don't think he was at shoot-around today, and he's questionable with that foot soreness. But Philly's been off a bit, if I'm not mistaken. So I'd call this one pretty much a coin flip on Embiid. Stay tuned. The line suggests he's probably out, but let's wait and see. Vegas sometimes knows. Remember, they had LeBron, that line with, I think it was Sacramento, assuming LeBron was, or was that Memphis? I don't remember which team that was. I think it was the Sacramento game. They thought LeBron was going to be out. And then Sabonis was out. That one, and LeBron was in, and the line jumped by like 5 points. So it's not always nailed. I think it's leaning towards Embiid resting, which means if you wanted to go Montrezl Harrell, that would be the name you could look at on the Philly side. Brooklyn, Royce O'Neal kind of bouncing back and forth. I'd put a lot of these guys. That whole Brooklyn fill-in roster is schedule streamers. For Philly, Montrez is above that if Embiid has to sit the ball game out. And then keep tabs on DeAnthony Melton. I'd love to see what his deal is because, maybe he gets a bigger role if Embiid sits. Washington on the back-to-back in Houston. Can they pick up 2 wins in Texas? This one should be the easier of the 2 ball games, but Houston's gotten a few bigger scoring nights from Jalen Green lately. Alperen Şengün's been looking a little bit better. If Jabari Smith Jr. continues to sit, which I believe he will, Tari Eason is a really interesting short-term fantasy play. I'd expect Daniel Gafford not to pick up 6 fouls in 19 minutes in this one, and I'm really excited to see what he's going to do here in a larger fill-in role. Denver on the back-to-back in Milwaukee. We'll see if Jokic plays in this one. Interested in Chris Middleton's minutes cap. And obviously we can kind of react from there. Denver, if multiple guys are out, you can look at Zeke Naji potentially. Bruce Brown is already in the mix. For Atlanta, waiting on Bogey to kind of wake up. He's in a prolonged slump on a Hawks team that really is Jekyll and Hyde these days. Oklahoma City continues to just find ways to win ball games, and a lot of that is Shea. This is going to be a tough one for Atlanta. They're favored by 1.5 on the road, but I don't know, man. That is a pretty reasonable chance they lose this ball game. Minnesota at New Orleans. Not a whole lot there. Maybe Slow-Mo stays out of foul trouble. We already talked about Brandon Ingram coming back on the Pelly side. Utah's in Portland. Nothing for the Blazers. Nothing really for the Jazz. Things have settled a bit. You can keep an eye on Walker Kessler's minutes. But until Kelly Olynyk comes back, I don't think I'm planning on making any adjustments to the usual fare. Toronto is all about whether or not OG Anunoby is playing. And actually, frankly, from on the Roto side, it kind of doesn't matter to me. Sacramento, nothing. Just the sort of continued tracking of Keegan Murray as he improves week to week. Memphis. Kind of buried the lead on this one. Sorry, everybody. I should have talked about this more towards the top of the story. Steven Adams is out for a while, actually. This really surprising. He's one of the toughest dudes in the NBA, so this is a real injury for him. He's expected to miss about a month. Now, there are 2 schools of thought on the Steven Adams thing, and they probably both have merit. One of them is whether you grab Xavier Tillman. Because remember, Tillman got the start for the Grizzlies back on, I think that was Monday, right? And they got blown out in Sacramento. No Ja and no Steven Adams for that ball game. And the Kings just spanked them with a superior offense. In that one, Tillman got the start and played 30 minutes. Brandon Clark only got 13 minutes off the bench. But it's worth noting, first of all, Clark didn't look good in this game. A lot of his chemistry is with Ja Morant. So you kind of almost need Morant in there for Clark to work. Also, he picked up a bunch of fouls. He had 3 fouls in like 6 minutes in the first half, and it just, whatever opportunity he was going to have evaporated. And if he was going to play late in this ball game, that went away because the game was a blowout. Between those two guys, Tillman and Clark, I lean towards Brandon Clark, if only because we know that in 23 minutes, Brandon Clark is, like a top 80 kind of guy. Xavier Tillman legitimately needs full starters minutes to post fantasy value. It's all about what these guys do on a per minute basis. Tillman can rebound well, and he gets some steals out of the center spot. Typically not much of a shot blocker, and his field goal percent and free throw percent are also, well, the free throws like fine if you're comparing that to Brandon Clark, but Clark typically has the better field goal percent. So give me the efficiency guy there. I get it if head-to-head players trust Tillman more, because if he's in the starting 5, that's a better opportunity to play more minutes. You have an opportunity to sort of compile more stats. And with Clark, you're kind of rolling the dice a bit more that you're going to get that super fast production from him. Get him on the floor for 20 some odd minutes, get the fast production. On the roto side, that's the way I lean. I like the field goal percent. I want the rebounds, the blocks. That's a big thing for me. I want Clark out there between those two guys. That's the direction I lean. But I also get it. I don't think that this one is a cut and dry answer. That's just the way that I go with it. What am I forgetting here? Golden State, nothing really. Poole's been better lately, but there's not much I'm keeping real close tabs on. Spurs, they're bubble wrapping some of their veterans at this point. Lakers should be able to walk their way through this ball game. LeBron is questionable. It's tough for him on the back-to-backs. I don't know how he can sit out a game that is kind of a must-win for LA. The only way I would see LeBron sitting this game is if Greg Popovich called up Darvin Ham beforehand and was like, look, dude, you can give Bron the day off. We're going to find a way to give you this game. Like, I'll pull the plug on any of my good players if it's close in the fourth quarter. And then a wink, wink, and a nod later. And then LeBron maybe sits. But I don't know how he sits when you look at what's coming up for the Lakers. They're in Boston on Saturday. Yikes. In Brooklyn on Monday. Yikes. In Manhattan on Tuesday. Yikes. In Indiana on Thursday of next week, when Halliburton will probably be back by then. In New Orleans, Saturday of next week. Now, I don't know who's going to be back for the Pelicans, so maybe that one's not quite as tough as it could have been. But then they've got the Thunder, the Bucks, and the Warriors. This is a stretch after the Lakers get through the Spurs, playing a winning team. What are the Pacers at? They're like right around 500. Then winning team, Thunder, they're like right around a winning team. Bucks, big time winning team. Warriors have been better. This is a rough stretch. What is that, 7-8 games? Lakers got to go, I think they've got to go 3-5 at the worst there, or you're starting to stare down the barrel of it a little bit. Then roll into the All-Star break. They got the Blazers, the Pels again, the Warriors, coming out of the All-Star break, the Mavericks, the Grizzlies, Thunder, Wolves, Warriors, Grizzlies, Raptors, Knicks, Pels, Rockets. There's a break. March 15th, the Lakers' schedule gets easier down the stretch. But like the next almost 2 months is going to be a grind. I don't know how LeBron takes games off when they're winnable. The ones I would expect him to take off would be like maybe one of the Nets or Knicks on a back-to-back there, or maybe in Boston if the Celtics are fully healthy in a game where it's like, look, we're going to lose this one, so I might as well just rest up. Like he did in Denver. I'd be so floored if he sat this one out, unless there was like a weird handshake agreement. And that's what we got coming up. Don't worry, I'll be doing more of our kind of look ahead stuff over on Twitter. So certainly do stay tuned for that. And yeah, that's wrap up time. I want to remind everybody listening on the recorded podcast channels of a couple of things before we send you off into your day. Number one, follow me on Twitter at Dan Vespris. Number two, Come join us on YouTube in the future, other way around, youtube.com/sportsethos. Like and subscribe our various videos over there because it's the right thing to do. And 3, mock deadline awesomeness is happening over at sportsethos.com. Make sure to follow Sports Ethos. That's it. Just the name of the site on Twitter at Sports Ethos to see some of these really wild trades that are going down. Stephen Bagel of the Bird Rights Pod putting it together. He got 30 GMs from across the NBA media landscape to work on this. It's fantastic. It's unbelievable. You guys got to check it out. All right. I'll talk to you guys on Twitter. Have a great, whatever the hell day it is. Wednesday. Have a great Wednesday, everybody. We'll talk to you first thing tomorrow morning. And so long for now. All right, YouTubers. You're hanging out with me here a tiny bit longer. Let's get into the questions. And what I also want to do here is share a player rank board screen. So make sure everybody's cool here. I'm getting buzzed. So you guys can see the players that we're talking about as we talk about them. I think that's sort of relevant. Also, to the YouTubers, those hanging out with me, let's get some more likes on the video. That's always a big deal. It kind of helps people find it. It pops up on various feeds. People's YouTube viewing, it'll just roll into this podcast if people are paying attention to it. So lots of likes. Anybody that is finding us for the first time, please do subscribe to our YouTube page. I forgot to do a break in the middle of the podcast to remind you all of that. So please do go hit that subscribe button and like the video. And let's get some questions going in that chat room now. We'll roll up to the top. If you are watching and you have questions, this is the time to do it. Boy, my face gets real small when we're doing these things. Can you elaborate more on the Adams situation? Yeah, I'm not into Santi Aldama. I think that would be more of a JJJ situation. And you guys are seeing as I'm flipping around in the background here. Aldama only played 14 minutes in that last ball game with no Steven Adams. So to me, he's not even on the board. That's JJ. He needs JJJ out. That's a power forward battle. Brandon Clark is the backup center. Yeah, I mean, I get it. Kyle Lowry, he runs really hot. He runs really cold. He shot the ball horribly, but he had 5 rebounds, 8 assists or something like that in that game yesterday. The only thing that wasn't there was the shot. So, yeah, I know. Brandon Ingram. Is Dennis Smith Jr. a drop? Yeah, I mean, on the Roto side, I could make an argument for it. I hung on to him in a few spots. I really feel like he's a lot closer than the stat lines might indicate right now. He's a drop only if there's a better streamer that's very obviously out there and hanging on for you. So, I'll say maybe. Head-to-head side, I think it's actually easier to hang on to him because you're going to get something. Oh, sorry. Yeah, see, I disagree with that. I don't think he's definitely a drop. His last ball game was pretty good. He had 15 and 9 or something. And also, it's a for who? Yeah, I mean, I think Denny's a hold right now. What he did yesterday was heavily the result, obviously, of Rui being traded, Porzingis being hurt, and Daniel Gafford being in foul trouble. I don't think he's going to do quite that much on a game-to-game basis. But like I said earlier in the show, I like Gafford the most among the pickups, and Denny is the second, and then DeLon Wright is the guy that I think is probably the rest of season play among all of them. If Halliburton's back on Friday, would you drop TJ McConnell for DeLon Wright or Denny Avdia? Yeah, I would drop him for DeLon Wright. Yep, I agree with you, Tamir. Andrew says, looking to improve my roster. Aren't we all? Recently acquired OG Anunoby and Darius Garland. Should I turn them into Tyrese Halliburton? Yeah, I like that. OG and Garland for Halliburton. That works if he's really going to be back towards the weekend, as it sounds like it might be. And then pick up probably Keegan Murray. He's got a better rest of season outlook than Daniel Gafford among those two guys. Although, if you're looking just at the next 2 weeks, it might be Gafford. Steven Vidovich, my guy. Dirty Steve. That's right, Uncle Leo. Uncle Leo says hello. Hello, Jerry. Hello, Uncle Leo. Yeah, I mean, with Nemhard, he's been sick. He had that one good game. I feel like we'll never really know for sure. Dennis Smith Jr. hasn't been as good as expected, but Gordon Hayward did come back at that exact same time, so that was a little bit of a complicating factor. I still think DSJ can do enough in 28 minutes for whatever that's worth. So take it or leave it, I guess. Must add, well, I just did a little bit on Tillman towards the end. I think he'll be a better compiler, but he needs more playing time to be consistently fantasy relevant. Is Onyeka Okongwu and Clark the way we are they both ads in 12 teamers? Okongwu is not because Capella's back. Clark, I think I probably would. I'm holding Cat and Durant. Thoughts on DeAndre Ayton? I really need him to play. He's sick. He'll be okay. Yeah. Try to just hope for the best there. He'll be back soon. Gafford, short term versus long term. Short term, I think he could go top 75 or even a little bit higher with Porzingis out. When KP comes back, Gafford probably slides back more into that 100 to 140 range. So more of a schedule streamer at that point. Should I drop Gafford or slow-mo for Keegan Murray or neither? Yeah, I'd probably drop Gafford because it sounds like Cat is still out a bit longer. But yes, you got to move one of them because Murray's been ramping up. And he's been a rest of season play lately. Hey, Mr. 101, what's up, dude? Like and subscribe since you just joined in. Figure I got to throw that in there. All of you guys like and subscribe. Is Portis a hold in a 16-team head-to-head league? Will he miss 4 to 6 weeks? Yeah, I think he's going to miss a month. 16 teamers, I'm going to say yes. Portis is, I think he's like right around the edge of the top 100. 86 per game for Bobby Portis, so slightly better than that. He moved up the board a bit when Giannis was out. But when that team's fully healthy, he's more like a 100 range guy. 12 teamers, I don't think you necessarily need to hold on him unless your team can absolutely weather the storm. If you could tuck him in an injured slot, something like that, that's kind of a different monster. When someone's asking, do I need to hold someone? I assume they mean, do I need to take zeros? Because if they were saying, should I put him in my IL? Obviously, the answer is yes. But should I take zeros in a 16-teamer? I'm going to say probably yes on Portis. For 12 teamers, probably no. I got offered James Harden for Damian Lillard. Would you take it? That's fair. Go with whatever stats you need. That's totally fair. Dame has actually been better than Harden over the last month or so. Make sure we get this stat pulled up right so you guys can see it. There's Dame at 10. There's Harden at 15. It's very fair. Totally fair. Both those guys are probably going to be between 8 and like 16 to 18 the rest of the way. Little sine wave in there. It's very not cutting. It's not at all cut and dry. If you need scoring, you go Dame. If you need assists, you go Harden. Wagner or Mobley in a points league. That's tight, man. I think I'll go Mobley because life just keeps getting more and more complicated in Orlando. This is Franz Wagner, by the way, obviously not Mo Wagner or Evan Mobley. That's not a question that's worth asking. I'm going to go Mobley. I know that Franz has been a little better lately, and points league does complicate things a tiny bit, but I'm going to go Mobley here, especially if Donovan Mitchell has to miss some time. They'll need Mobley to do more in the short term. And I also think with Orlando, like if they decide they want to use more Suggs at any point, if Jonathan Isaac starts to siphon any usage away, all of that stuff just complicates. I like Franz, though. Is DeLon Wright safe rest of season, or is he a sell high? I don't think you're going to get anything for him, so just ride it out, see what happens. I think is your only real option there. Bradley Beal or JJJ in a points league? Feels like JJJ is a sell high. Yeah, he is a little bit of a sell high. The fact that they're that close, despite how unreal Jaren Jackson Jr. has been. There he is. Look, it's 16 on the board. Still at 3.5 blocks per ball game, but stuff is starting to come back a little bit on him. Remember, he was like at or this is the last month he's at 16. Apologies. Let me reset it to the season. He's still 11 overall. Field goal percent has come down. Scoring's come down a little bit. Blocks have stayed very high for him. If there's any kind of, multi-week block slowdown, because he's at a crazy block rate right now. If that comes down under 3, then he does fall off. And that would be enough, I think, in this particular case to move Beal in front of him. So I'll lean Bradley Beal on that one, although it's really cool what JJJ is doing right now. I enjoy doing them. I probably need to find a way to shorten it a little bit, but I enjoy doing them, the live stream. So you're welcome, Cresto. I appreciate it. Danomite! What's up, Beans? What can we expect? When can we expect Zion realistically after the update? And do you think he will get a heavy minutes cap? Yeah, I mean, they'll bring him along slowly because the Pels are firmly in the playoff picture out west, although anything can happen there because the West is such an intense cluster mess. Something going on outside the window behind me. I just assumed that with Zion, everything was going to take a really long time. It's part of the reason that I didn't draft him anywhere. I have 0 Zions on my team. But there isn't a whole lot you can do about it besides just wait. And then they'll bring him along the way they bring along everybody. They'll be around probably 18 to 20 minutes, and they'll slowly work his way up the board. I don't have anything groundbreaking on Zion. Sorry. I wish I did. I think we see him back within the next, say, 3 or 4 weeks. I don't know. I always figured it was going to be a really long recovery because he needs explosion so bad. And I always thought that like the first number with him when they said it was going to be like a month, I thought that was super low. Better stream today. Naz Reid, Montrezl Harrell, Xavier Tillman, or Zach Collins, assuming Gobert and Embiid miss today. I don't know that we can assume those guys are going to miss today is where I probably go a different direction than you, my friend Hinny Minnie. Tillman's probably the safest because we know Steven Adams is out. You don't have to wait on any status reports. Spurs, I'd be pretty worried about because if AD does come back and see the reserves at all, he might just teabag Zach Collins. So let's say if those guys are out, then I would probably go Montrez over Naz, over Tillman, over Collins. But if everybody's in, then it's Tillman over Collins, and those other two guys barely see the floor. You think the way the Spurs are bubble wrapping players will they let Vassell play again this year? Yeah, I think he'll play again this year. I do. I don't know if it's going to be before your fantasy playoffs, but I do think he'll play again this season because, the season still has just a little under 3 months left in it. It's a long time. It feels like we're getting into the thick of it, and there is a week off for the All-Star break. And that's why we're kind of significantly past the halfway point in games played, but not super past it in just traditional time on the year. But we still got to February 25th, to March 25th, to the middle of April. There's a lot of time left. I think Vassell plays. I don't know if he ever gets to full minutes, but I do think he plays. We're doing the questions, by the way, guys. I'm getting them from the chat room. A bunch of you just jumped in here during the Q&A part of the show. So please do like this show and subscribe to our YouTube page. I'm trying to do this as often as humanly possible. If you've got a question, throw it in the chat. Also, hey, here's my Twitter. I expect to see all of you. Anybody that's watching a show that doesn't follow me on Twitter, I expect to see you there by the end of the day. Yeah, I mean, you're right. One good game, and so forth. And you're right. If LaMelo and Halliburton are coming back, then yes, they probably aren't worth a long-term hold here in Dennis Smith Jr. or Nembhard, who's out. Nembhard's been sick, so he's very droppable. But DSJ, I don't really mind rolling through another game or two if you get it out of him on the head-to-head side, maybe more than the Roto. Are Precious Achua or Hachimura ads? Not in Roto, they're not. Not in head-to-head, they either. Because the Lakers play tonight, and then they don't play again until Saturday. Rui will probably have a decent ball game. You play alongside LeBron, you're going to get some pretty good looks. He's much more suited for points leagues because he's like a 2-category guy. Precious Achua is also way more suited for points leagues because he could go out there and just bomb all of your percentages all at once. If I was going to pick one to play tonight, it's going to come down to whether or not OG Anunoby is in for the Raptors. If Anunoby's out, I would take Achua over Hachimura. If not, then I'd flip it the other way. But in actuality, I'm probably not playing either of them. How long is Bobby Portis going to be out? I would say 5 weeks is my guess. I'll split the difference on 4 to 6, which is sort of the usual on an MCL sprain. But maybe he comes back quickly. Maybe you get him in 4. Do I drop Slow-Mo, Harrison Barnes, or DeAndre Hunter when Devin Booker comes back? Probably Hunter on this one. DeLon Wright or Quentin Grimes? I'll go Wright. He's been more fun lately. 10 cat, where 3-point percentage is the extra one. Jaylen Brown, CJ McCollum, and Beal. Rank them in order with injuries and rest concerns. David, this might be too tough for me to do in a live show because I got to redo my boards to have 3-point percentage in the mix. So we're going to jump over that one, and we'll save that one for another day. Sorry, buddy. That's just too much, man. You got to give me 8 or 9 cat on this, or points league. But wacky cats that I don't pay too much attention to is too hard on a live show. Do you think Kendrick Nunn might be worth an ad? Nope. Who are some good pre-trade deadline pickups? Well, you want to isolate the teams that you know are sellers, and there actually aren't that many of them this year because so many teams are near the play-in tournament. Like, you're looking 12 deep in the Eastern Conference are near the play-in tournament, and 13 deep in the Western Conference. So there's really only 5 obvious sellers at the deadline right now. That could change over the next 2 weeks. What if the Raptors decide to abandon ship, or who else could abandon ship? Could the Pacers? I doubt it, but maybe. Would the Thunder consider selling on anybody? They don't have any veterans to sell on that team anymore. Kenrich Williams is like the only one. So the Spurs and the Rockets in the Western Conference, and I'm pausing on this question for a little bit longer because I do think it deserves a tiny bit of time. Mr. 101, I got your question above. Portis is a hold in 16 teamers. So if you look at a team like the Rockets, you're looking what would happen if Eric Gordon got moved, and the answer is nothing. What would happen if Eric Gordon and KJ Martin got moved? And the answer is Tari Eason becomes really interesting there. So he's your maybe on the Rockets. Now you look at the Spurs. Who are the guys that are likely to go there? Josh Richardson, Jakob Poeltl are the 2 guys that are likely to move on the Spurs. What happens if Poeltl gets moved? Zach Collins gets bumped up, and he probably profiles as kind of like a top 90 sort of 9-cat guy the rest of the way. So he's an interesting one. If Richardson get moves, I don't really think there's anyone that directly benefits from that because he was coming off the bench anyway. What about on the other side? The Magic. They're probably trying to move Terrence Ross, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't change anything. Mo Bamba gets moved, doesn't really change anything. Mo Wagner would see a little bit more time off the bench. Maybe Bull sees a couple extra minutes, but they got Jonathan Isaac coming back anyway. So not much with the Magic in terms of who you could maybe stash. What about the Hornets? A lot of those guys could potentially get moved. I also get the feeling that the Hornets don't want this to be a multi-year teardown because they have a young LaMelo Ball. They still have Rozier. I think Hayward is coming off the books here soon. We know Plumlee's coming off the books, but they might want to bring Plumlee. They won't want to bring Hayward back, not at that contract, but they might want to bring Plumlee back. So it's not a guarantee that they move him. They're going to have to get the right price. If they do, you think it would be Mark Williams, but then we saw Nick Richards play a bunch yesterday. So, arms up in the air. What the hell? I'd say Mark Williams is your best bet with the Hornets. And then with the Pistons, Bojan Bogdanovic is basically the only veteran that would make any difference if they moved him. And if they do, Sadiq Bey gets the probably largest bump. So those are the guys that you're looking at as kind of like the if something obvious goes down type of move. But then something always comes out of the blue. If Toronto blows something up, that would be one that would surprise everybody. And we'd all be scrambling to go add Chris Boucher or whatever in a pinch. Something's going to surprise us on trade deadline day. And then there's going to be a lot of fringy stuff. If you traded a top 5 guy in a 2-for-1, what would you want in return? So we're talking about someone like a Joel Embiid, basically. You would need basically like a second and a third rounder, effectively, coming back for a first. Preferably more, but you're probably not going to get it. Is there any clear ad in 12-team points league with Portis out? No, especially not as Middleton gets ramped up. And finally, I wanted to thank you for your daily streams. You helped a lot. Thanks, dude. Yeah, you're welcome. Appreciate the love, everybody. Thank you for a ton of questions today. I think it's really seemingly it's more every day, and I guess that's probably the way it's usually going to go. Is it crazy that I declined a trade for my LeBron for Giannis? No, not at all. If you're punting free throws, maybe, but honestly, here I'll show it to you guys right on the screen. This Basketball Monster page, you can choose a punt category. Let's punt free throw percent. Guess what? Wait, is this per game or totals? That I clicked field goal instead of free throw. Someone yell at me. You clicked the wrong one, Dan. Look where LeBron is. Boom. Number 8 in a punt free throw. Look where Giannis is. 18 in a punt free throw. Giannis isn't even a first rounder punting free throws this year. So I have no problem with your decision. And I'm not worried about LeBron with Anthony Davis back because this just means more opportunities for assists, and they're going to run a sick pick and roll. LeBron in a pick and roll with AD instead of Thomas Bryant. You don't think that's better? I think that's better. All right, I'm out. It's an hour 15. Goodbye, everyone. I love you all. Like and subscribe. Someone, you better do it, man. I got to see at least a few of you every day or I'm going to stop. Yeah, that's right.